Welcome, fellow horror hounds, and welcome to the latest episode of Talk and Stalk, your unholy home for horror. I'm your host, as always, Barry, and I'm joined today by my corrupted co-host, the diabolical Darren.
As always, I'm happy to be here and looking forward to talking about this film.
And the movie that we're going to be dedicating this podcast to now is 1971's Duel, which actually marks the feature film directorial debut of a little director you may have heard of, Steven Spielberg. As I said, released in 1971, 4 years before Spielberg really hit the big time with Jaws, which is very much, a classic, a film that needs no introduction whatsoever. Duel was actually a made-for-TV movie that did actually go on to get a theatrical release later, though. Now, from what I understand, Darren, this is a movie that you'd never actually seen before until recently.
No, that's right. It's like one that's always been on my radar, but I've never really got around to watching it. So, and I haven't got the physical DVD or anything, or the Blu-ray, which I think we spoke about before the podcast started, which is extortionate. But yeah, so I looked it up and I watched the longer version on YouTube, the theatrical version.
Okay, and yeah, as I said, this is very much a cult movie. Duel is a film that certainly does have an ardent fan base. I actually know some people out there that actually like this film as much, if not more so, than Jaws. Obviously, Jaws was a huge commercial success, actually becoming the first movie to actually be dubbed as a blockbuster, released in 1975. Now, I'm just going to quickly ask you this, Darren, because I haven't actually asked you this prior to the podcast, so I'm going to put you right under the spotlight now. You watched this for the first time a couple of days ago. Did you like this film?
To answer that in short, yes. Liked it very much. Obviously, there's parts of it that are quite, how can I put it, sort of slow and brooding, but I think that all works well and that, and I really enjoyed it for what it is. You're not going to get like a Jaws with the production values are not going to be as big as Jaws and all that, but I thought for what it was, like a TV movie, I thought the production values for what it was good.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, Steven Spielberg, received a lot of attention for this film, but, as I said, he didn't really become kind of the household name until Jaws in 75. He'd actually directed things prior to this, some TV episodes. He'd actually directed an episode of Columbo. He'd actually directed a segment in Night Gallery, an anthology series, which I'm quite a fan of. And this film was actually written by Richard Matheson. He wrote the screenplay, and it was actually based on his short story, which he wrote. Now, Richard Matheson is a very prolific story writer. He's wrote everything from Stir of Echoes to I Am Legend, which also, got known as I Am Legend and The Omega Man. Hell House, which obviously made into The Legend of Hell House. And probably some of his most notable works are for the classic The Twilight Zone. Nightmare at 20,000 Feet being certainly one of the most iconic episodes of that show. And Matheson actually, as I said, actually wrote this. And it was really The Twilight Zone that came to Steven Spielberg's attention. He really liked Matheson's work on The Twilight Zone. There was even an episode called Little Girl Lost. If anyone that's seen Poltergeist, there are clearly a lot of parallels from Little Girl Lost to Poltergeist. So that's what really got Steven Spielberg really noticing Richard Matheson, his work on that. And this was originally, believe it or not, I don't know if you know this, Darren, but this was originally published in a copy of Playboy. Its very first appearance as a short story was in Playboy.
Yeah, I think the story goes that somebody who knew Spielberg gave him a copy and asked him to read the short story.
Yeah.
And he loved it, apparently, and then he wanted to go on then and make the film.
Yeah.
I think he actually, when he went in to see the film executives about making it, he actually brought in his Columbo episode.
Yeah.
And he got the gig off the back of that.
Yeah, which I believe was called Murder by the Book, which actually starred Jack Cassidy.
Which I don't think had been... It wasn't out at the time, it hadn't been broadcast at the time. But yeah.
But yeah, it was. I believe it was Spielberg's secretary who basically told him that it was going to be made into kind of a movie of the week for ABC, and she basically insisted, to Spielberg, you should make it. Go ahead, And basically what happened with this film, it was a successful TV film, and then they tried to vie for a theatrical release, but its original runtime was 74 minutes, which they didn't deem to be long enough for a theatrical release. So basically Universal actually contacted Steven Spielberg to shoot additional scenes to make up the runtime closer to an hour and a half. And
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, some of these scenes we are going to talk about. We're going to get to some of these scenes. So let's just talk about the film as a whole here. Dennis Weaver, this isn't a film that really has a huge amount of dialogue. There's not a huge amount of characters in this film. It's basically Dennis Weaver on the road, cat and mouse game with a truck. And I'm a less is more kind of guy. The fact is, the truck in itself, because we never actually get a look at the truck driver, the truck almost becomes a character. It becomes the villain of the movie itself, doesn't it?
It's like, if you look at the truck, it's sort of got a face. And I think Spielberg even said that.
Yes,
it looks like it's got a face.
Yeah, that's why they chose that truck. Yeah.
But yeah, it totally looks menacing. And I think, like, in a few scenes and all, they had to, obviously, through trickery, they had to try and speed up the film, make out this truck was faster than it actually was.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a very iconic looking truck.
Well, basically, I think the Spielberg actually praised how the truck was actually handled by the 50-year-old stunt driver. It appears the truck is driving at a really unsafe speed, but in reality, it wasn't going more than 30 miles an hour. He basically, I think Spielberg kind of borrowed the specially made camera from the 1968 film, Steve McQueen movie, Bullet, which would basically just lower the camera to only 6 inches off the ground. And from all the angle and perspective, it just appears as though that truck is going a lot faster than what it is. So it's this whole kind of like, the driver is anonymous. We don't get to see the driver. There's 3 moments in the film that we get a kind of a little glimpse. There's one moment where we see, it's from the side of the truck, isn't it? We see the guy's hand on the steering wheel.
That's right, yeah. We see his boots.
We see his boots when
2 or 3 times.
Checks his tyre pressure as well. And the only other bit, again, which is actually, I think, a great little moment in the film, is where the truck driver's hand comes out, beckoning the guy to overtake him.
Oh, yeah, we will come to that scene. That's a great scene.
And, Dennis Weaver is the lead actor in this film. And I believe it was actually Weaver's performance in Touch of Evil, which is a classic noir thriller in 1958, that actually convinced Spielberg that he'd be perfect for this role. It's that really had Spielberg interested in Dennis Weaver. So yeah, it all starts innocently enough. I mean, all he does, there's a truck in front of him, he overtakes his truck, and it all starts from there. And there's seemingly no motive whatsoever for this truck driver to be doing this, but it comes this big cat and mouse game on the road. I
don't know about you, but when I first, the first shot, you get like the point of view from a driver, and you got he's obviously driving.
Yeah.
You got with the radio playing in the background, it really gave me a sense of like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where you got the opening of that film, you got the radio announcer in the background.
Yeah, I mean,
it really gave me the feel of that.
What I like about it, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that scene. I was gonna get to that bit, but what I really like about that, by the way, was one of the scenes that was added for the theatrical release.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, all of that was added, and I like the fact he's getting further and further away from the city, and we hear this radio. You really kind of like feel you're there on this journey, and then obviously we get to the desert and so forth. But yeah, some of the radio stuff early on, we hear about this
prank call, yeah.
Yeah, well, we hear about this guy, don't we, that doesn't consider himself to be the man of the house.
That's right.
And that he's kind of like ashamed for admitting it, and that there's some kind of like almost tongue-in-cheek kind of humour on this radio station and that going on.
But don't you think, like, you got that man, obviously, say he's not the man of the house and all that, and then a bit later on in the film, we find out that he rings his wife.
Yeah.
And then he kind of don't seem to be the man of the relationship, if you know what I mean.
No, there is
So I wonder
actually.
if that was
Well, there's
played in.
actually some hidden subtext with this film, actually. I haven't looked too much into it, but there is masculinity actually plays a bit of a theme in this movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Masculinity or a lack of to some degree. Now, let's just quickly, he obviously, and by the way, the scene that you were talking about where he phones up, that was another additional scene for the theatrical release.
Oh yeah, that don't surprise me.
And there's actually a couple of scenes, actually very good scenes that weren't in the original TV film. We're going to get onto them, but there's two scenes that one especially. There's one scene that I love.
I know the one you mean.
Okay.
Yeah, I do as well. I love that scene as well.
But so he overtakes, and then the truck goes in front of him, overtakes him at a speed, but then slows down. It's like, what the hell's going? Yeah. This truck driver's playing this goddamn game with him.
He's messing with his head, you know.
And he can't overtake him. This truck's just not allowing him past. It's, this truck driver's having a lot of fun with him. And then we get this, his hand comes out beckoning him to overtake. So the guy's thinking, oh, yeah, thank God. And then there's oncoming traffic and oncoming car. So the guy's actually trying to potentially kill him here.
I tell you what, that's a great scene. To have that scene so early on as well. We think, he's just beckoning him to go past. Everything's going to be fine. And then to have the other car coming in the other direction straight at him.
Yeah.
It's just, And then that this guy means business. He really wants him dead.
Yeah. Yeah. And, there's obviously a scene a little later as well. Now, one of the scenes I definitely want to talk about, actually, it's one of the highlight scenes to me. It's the Chuck's Cafe scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
He's been on the road for a while, and he gets there, and he goes in there, and he realises the truck's outside. Now, this diner, Chuck's Cafe, I believe, is actually still standing. In fact, a lot of the locations and places that we actually see in this film are actually still present to this day. Chuck's Cafe, in particular, that is still there. But the scene in which he goes into the cafe and we see all of these people and it's whole kind of, hang on a sec, which one's the truck driver? It's a really suspenseful scene. It's a really suspenseful moment.
Yeah, it's like when he films that scene, it's obviously just done through pure suspense. But then we see all the sort of red herrings.
Yeah.
And then you've got him sat at the table there. And what I like about the film as well, is sort of inner monologues where he's talking to himself.
Yeah.
Trying to convince himself everything's okay.
He's still trying to find logic and reason. I mean, the thing is, there's no reason for him to be tormented like this. He hasn't done anything wrong. So it's like completely just alien to him. And, the kind of scary thing, if you will, about this is this kind of thing could happen to anyone.
Yeah, you actually think, could it be in his head at one stage when he sat in the cafe and thinking to myself, is he just, overanalyzing this? Is it all in his head?
Yeah, but, a lot of us have been on the road, a lot of us drive and stuff, and, road rage and whatever. There might be drivers that irritate us and all this and that, but clearly it looks like, he's found a driver that... Now, Steven Spielberg had actually said that, I'm not sure if you noticed, but on the front of the truck there's multiple plates.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And Steven Spielberg has basically said, I don't think this has ever been 100% confirmed, but he kind of implied that maybe all of these plates and that are from different victims over people from different states that he's run off the road.
I think that's definitely the intention, because that's what I got from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which makes now he's actually a serial killer.
Yeah.
If you work that out for yourself, like.
But yeah, much like The Car, which was released in 1977 as well, a driverless car, terrorising a small town. And it's the anonymous fact, it's the fact that we don't get a look at this driver. It's the truck. It's the truck that becomes, it is like Jaws. I know you said this earlier. It is kind of like Jaws, but on the road. It's kind of a monster movie, if you will, with the truck being the monster.
Yeah, like I said, they actually, a lot of people do regard Jaws as a sequel to this, which I can see that. I can definitely see that.
But the Chuck's Cafe scene has kind of a signature Steven Spielberg technique from what I've read on that he borrowed from directors like Orson Welles and Alfred Hitchcock. He enters the cafe and that, and it's basically all done in one continuous take without any breaks. The entire shot is, I think it's like nearly 3 minutes. It's like 2 minutes 45 seconds, and this was filmed long, the days before Steadicam, actually making it quite difficult to shoot. But panning around, through the diner. Now, this gets back to when we get a look at the boots of the driver.
That's right. Yeah.
Because he's looking round and he's looking at each of these guys. Obviously, this diner is actually quite busy, and he's looking at all these boots to see. And guys are looking round. It's like everyone's a suspect kind of thing. And there's this one guy in particular that keeps looking around, looking really shady. And the movie certainly heavily implies that this could be the guy.
Yeah, and he plays that scene really well, because this guy ends up leaving, and we think he's going to go into the truck. So he's watching at the table, right,
Yeah.
And then we find out that no, the killer's not him.
Yeah, it's very well done, because as he leaves, like you said, he's walking towards the truck. He walks around the truck. You think he's going to get in there, he's going to get in the door, get in the driving seat, and then we realise that his small little truck is parked behind it.
Yeah, it's brilliantly done, brilliantly filmed. Yeah, definitely.
So that the whole diner scene. And of course, there's one other guy. There's one other guy that he looks at. He looks at the boots, and the boots seem to match up, and he becomes convinced this is the bloke, and he walks up to him, doesn't he? And he's I can't remember what he says now, but he's basically accusing him. And this guy's like, what the hell are you talking about? And there's a bit of an altercation and all that. And then, of course, he's not the guy either. And I believe the truck driver was out there the whole... Not sure if they were out there the whole time, actually, or if they left when we didn't see it. But then the truck actually goes off, doesn't it?
Yeah, because I always find it quite funny in a way, because he knocks sandwich out of that guy's hand.
Yeah.
And then basically the guy ends up like... Well, I wouldn't say beating him up because he got pulled off, but he ends up hitting him twice.
Yeah.
And like you said from earlier on in the film, he kind of like is this guy who's like not macho at all. He's very, I don't know what the word is, but he's, he could have done with being a bit more oomph in him. Yeah, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, really, because Kerry Lofton, the truck driver, had actually, as I said, we obviously never get a look at him. And I love the fact, I really appreciate the fact we don't get a look at him, in all honesty. It's like with Jaws, less is more. You really don't see much of that shark until the end of the movie. And
I think it'd been a different movie if we'd have seen the killer. I don't think it would have worked half as well.
Yeah. And basically I think he approached Spielberg, and he actually asked Spielberg, what's your motivation what's the motivation here? Why am I tormenting this guy? And I think Spielberg actually said something along the lines of, you're a dirty, rotten, no good son of a bitch, excuse my language. And I think Lofton said something like, kid, you hired the right man. I'm the right man for this job.
Yeah. He's quite prolific stuntman, he was as well. He was in a hell of a lot of TV shows. And that, he's really prolific.
Well, it's funny, really, because I don't know if you read, but Richard Matheson apparently was actually inspired to write this on an actual encounter that he had with a tailgating truck driver that was actually happened. This encounter actually happened on the day that JFK was assassinated back in 1963. So it was actually kind of a personal experience that he actually felt as though, there was a tailgating kind of escapade with a truck.
Wasn't he coming home from a golf tournament or something?
Yes, it was something like that. There's also little thing as well that I never actually noticed this until I saw it online and I checked out for it. The reflection of Steven Spielberg is actually seen in the film.
Yeah, I did notice that. Yeah. in the one scene,
it's a scene in which Dennis Weaver actually did his own stunt for. It's where he's in the phone booth and the truck is coming right for him. And he dives out. It had to be very carefully done, but he did his own stunt there. And Steven Spielberg, prior to the truck smashing through, Steven Spielberg can very briefly be seen in the reflection of the phone booth.
Yeah, I did notice it. Yeah, I don't think it. It doesn't really detract.
Oh no! Just a little tidbit of trivia. No, at the end of the day, every film's got goofs, every film's got mishaps and whatever. And but I mean, I've seen the film loads of times. I've never even noticed it, so it wasn't. I mean, Spielberg actually admitted, it was just an accident. But there was actually there's also a moment in the film as well that I didn't notice. But there's a parked sedan that's kind of, it looks like a squad car, and it turns out to be a service car for a pest exterminator, and the name on it is Greiblipes, and it's actually Spielberg in reverse.
Oh, I never noticed that one.
Yeah, it's Steven Spielberg's name in reverse on this pest exterminator car. So yeah, one of the scenes. Right now, what scene do you think it is that I love?
I'm thinking it's the one where he tries to kill him with the train.
No, but I do love that scene also. I do really like that scene. And again, that is one of the scenes that wasn't in the original TV version.
Yeah, so obviously it's the one then with the school kids, is it, in the bus?
Yes.
Yeah.
What I love about that whole scene, right, is, again, not to sound like a broken record, that's one of the other scenes that was added for the theatrical. That wasn't in the TV edition.
Oh, right. So I've done well then, watching the longer version then.
Definitely, yeah. The scene, yeah. So he's driving along, isn't he? And there's a school bus. I think they're stuck, aren't they? They can't actually... Hasn't the engine overheated or something?
Yeah, it pretty much just can't get going at all.
So he's trying to push him and help and that. And, it's not really going to plan. And then the truck turns up. And it's that shot we get through the tunnel. And again, it's like a goddamn monster movie. The truck's just stood there and all of a sudden the lights come on.
He's just stalking.
Yeah.
This truck is just stalking him.
Yeah. And what I love about it, it's Dennis Weaver's reaction. So this truck comes in and this truck doesn't... What you'd probably think, this truck's going to cause some harm to the people there. It's probably going to, I don't know, attempting killing the kids or whatever. The truck comes and actually helps him and pushes him, and Dennis Weaver looks round as if to say, what the hell?
Yeah, he looks as if to say, you're trying to kill me, but you're helping them.
It like this guy's a Samaritan all of a sudden, but what the hell have I done to this guy? Why the hell is he playing this game with me?
Yeah.
And I just love that. I love that whole scene. It's just Dennis Weaver's reaction.
It's brilliant, yeah. I agree.
Because you assume that, these kids are now in peril or something. God knows what this truck's going to do. And it's that standing shot. It's them lights coming on. But the train scene that you're talking about, I also love him slowly pushing him towards the train, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. That's like Hitchcock-ian type suspense, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
But don't you think, like, with the, David Mann, Dennis Weaver's character...
Yeah.
Don't you think he brings a lot of it all on himself? Because he tries this false bravado, as if, the name of the film, Duel.
Mm.
And he could quite easily have just, walked away from the whole incident and just...
He could have turned, he could have turned around, but, a guy...
His own bravado seemed to be his downfall.
Yeah, but I don't know, with his character in the film, I really do kind of root for him. I really do feel for him because he really isn't doing anything wrong. He's trying to, if I recall, he's just trying to get home, isn't he? Or is
he's trying. I think he's trying to he's trying to go to a meeting.
Yeah.
But he realises then there's no way he's going to make this meeting, so I'm not sure if he's trying to go. I don't think he's trying to go back, is he? Or
I can't quite recall where his destination. Obviously, he tells his wife, doesn't he? Because, like you said, getting back to that phone conversation and that, there's that whole kind of like, apparently a work colleague or something was making sexual come-ons and he didn't do anything about it or anything, which again comes down to maybe a lack of machismo.
Yeah,
if you
definitely.
Will, that he wouldn't stand up for his wife or whatever.
It's definitely undercurrent of that throughout the whole film. Yeah. And that's why I think with this now, he's got a bit of bravado in him and he's actually thinking, he's kind of getting excited by this.
Yeah.
At first, anyway.
Yeah. I mean...
But then it all goes downhill very rapidly.
I mean, there's another moment in the film as well which really shows you just how determined, just how... We'll use the word psychopathic or whatever this truck driver is. And that is where he pulls off to the road. He's kind of like hidden his car somewhat. And he says... like kind of adios to the guy. I'm not budging for an hour. So he's there for over an hour.
That's right, yeah.
And then carries on the road, and that truck's been waiting there the whole time.
It's incredible, isn't it? It's just, it's one step ahead of him. every time.
Yeah.
One step ahead of him.
That truck driver has been waiting there for an hour just for this guy to show up.
Just to mess with his head.
You know, and it's seemingly completely motiveless. There's no reason, there's no kind of like logic behind this. It's such a simple concept. It really is. I mean, you know, there's very little in the way of plot in this movie. It's just executed really well.
Yeah, you could see very early on that Spielberg had very talented, you know.
Yeah.
With the old desert scenes, I kind of got the Hills Have Eyes type vibe because it's very. I'm not sure if it was shot in the same desert. I think it was, wasn't it? The Mojave Desert.
I can't actually recall as to where it was filmed. I do believe it was filmed. I think it was actually filmed in like. I'm not sure if it was multiple locations. Actually, I think it was. Hang on a sec. I've actually got it written. Yeah, Canyon Country, Guadalupe, Acton, California. The Sierra Highway was used. Soledad Canyon Road. Yeah, and like I said, many of the landmarks actually still exist now.
Yeah. And then you got which I like. You know, we mentioned about other films as well. You got the stark, bright sunshine throughout the film as well.
Yeah.
I really like that.
I do. I really like this set. I've always said this. I've been saying this for years to people, actually. I mean, I don't drive. I don't think the road is ready for me yet. I don't think the world is ready for me to be on the road because I think road rage incidents would go through the roof. But I've always said that if I could drive and if I was in the US, I would love to go on one of these like desert, you know what I mean, these desert treks.
Yeah.
I would love.
It's just miles and miles of nowhere.
Yeah,
really.
and I've always wanted to kind of experience that. I'd love to do it, and this movie does that because pretty much the entire film is in that setting. And you know, I like you know, getting back to the opening, I like the fact that you know we actually see the car from POV again. Kind of great use of POV actually. You know, before Halloween did it and before Black Christmas even did it and all that.
Yeah, a long time before,
You know, we get to see this driving journey and he's getting further and further away from, obviously, you know, the suburbs and that. And I'm not sure if you noticed as well, but at the end of the movie, where the truck actually goes off the cliff, you actually hear like a monster's roar.
Right, yeah. You actually see, I actually, you know, when I was first watching it, you see the driver's door open as well, and part of me was thinking, well, did he get out?
Yeah.
Even though it's not, you know, it's not implied that happened, but yeah, but that noise, you know,
there's actually like really well. It's quite easy to like miss, I suppose. There is actually kind of a monstrous roar. And Spielberg actually added it as he wanted to like give a suggestion of the supernatural to the truck and the driver, because at its core it's kind of a monster movie, as I said, the truck being the monster. And the truck going over the cliff was done in one take, basically, because they couldn't afford other trucks with the film's pretty low budget. So they had to get that right in the one take.
Well, the executives wanted to actually film her again because they thought because throughout the film, you know, you've got highly inflammable written on the truck.
Yeah.
And they wanted to blow it up.
Yeah.
But Spielberg was adamant that he wanted to keep the shot as it was.
Yeah, that's right.
And again, in the book, I think in the book, is that the truck actually falls off the side of in just like a normal accident.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Whereas in this film, obviously Dennis Weaver's character, you know, causes the old crash, jumps out at the last minute.
Yeah,
but there's a scene before the ending about when he stops at the old lady's.
With the rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
That spider makes me cringe because, as you know, man, I'm arachnophobic, and you get to see a tarantula on his leg, don't you, for like 3 or 4 seconds?
Yeah, Ooh. And I was more afraid of the snakes, to be honest. But he's ruthless, this guy, because he tries to run him over in the phone booth.
Yeah. Now the thing is that's one thing I quickly want to say though, actually, because this made me wonder, because it's like an attempted murder, if you will, but he honks his horn just before he gets there. So is he just simply trying to scare him? Because he didn't have the driver didn't have to honk his horn there, but he honks his horn as if to say like a warning, get the hell out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I honestly believe he's trying to kill him because the way he comes up that telephone box.
Yeah,
And like you said, he actually performed that stunt himself, didn't he?
he did. Yeah, he did.
But didn't you find the music as well was kind of like psycho in parts?
Yes, there is actually one moment in the film that I can actually recall that very much sounds like Bernard Herrmann's shower scene.
I think that was the scene just after the garage, or
Yeah,
just at the garage.
I know that Billy Goldenberg actually scored it. Billy Goldenberg had actually scored some prior Spielberg stuff as well. I think it was him that scored the segment of Night Gallery that Spielberg did. And I'm pretty certain he scored the Columbo episode that Spielberg worked on as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a definite... Yeah, there is one moment in the film that I do recall that does sound very reminiscent of Psycho.
Yeah, absolutely.
But getting back to what you were saying earlier about the inner monologues and that, now I know originally there was actually kind of a plan to have his wife in the film with him, to give him a character to bounce off of. So,
right, okay. But actually in the car with him.
In the car with him, but then they decided that Spielberg decided they want it to be kind of a solo venture where he's kind of like the lead. So obviously it was done through kind of exposition through narration. We get the kind of narration and inner monologues, which you don't really see a huge amount, do you, really, in cinema? There's not a massive amount of films that I can really think of at the top of my head. Certainly not from that time period that did that.
No. I think it would have been a totally different film as well if he had had his wife with him, because I don't think it would have worked as well. Would the killer really have been trying to, kill the two of them? Possibly, but it works better as a duel, like you say, as one-on-one.
One-on-one. I mean, I'd love to know how the hell he's going to get back home at the end. I mean, I'm sure he's going to be able to hitch a ride from somewhere in that, but he's like middle of nowhere, isn't he?
He gets to a point where he actually thinks he's in the clear a couple of times, have you noticed? And he's like laughing.
Yeah.
All the time. And then that comes back to bite him as well. But
yeah.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
yeah.
The car, now I'm not a car enthusiast, okay, so I can't really talk much about the cars. I'm sure there's some people out there, I know there's people out there that know anything and everything about cars and stuff, but from what I understand this film, I did kind of check it up. It was a 1970, a red Plymouth Valiant that Dennis Weaver actually... And he actually did most of the driving himself. It was only some of the stunt sequences and so forth. It wasn't Weaver. But there were actually 3 cars used for the film as well. And apparently Spielberg really didn't care what car they used, but he wanted a red car. It had to be red.
Because it probably... with the stark desert in the background, it probably stood out more.
Yeah, he wanted something to basically be seen on, for example, the long shots, among kind of the desert highway and that, something that you'd be able to see from a distance. And so that was really the primary reason for having a red car. Now, did you actually know that there was a merchandised board game of Duel?
No.
There was actually a board game that didn't sell well. It didn't sell well. It was a bit of a commercial flop, but apparently it's one of them things very hard to get hold of now, and needless to say, skyrocketed in price.
Probably almost impossible, I would say now.
Yeah.
To get hold of one of them. The film. I think it was 18th in the TV films.
Okay.
List for the year.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they sort of. Do you know how it done theatrically? Did it do really well?
I've not actually looked at its theatrical box office gross, actually, to be honest. I've not looked into it. I know its TV ratings were very good. It got a lot of attention. It got enough attention for them to say, look, we're going to release this on the cinema. But I don't actually know how well it did box office-wise, how much it grossed. Because it's still kind of like hard to believe at times that it is just a TV movie, because it is one of them films that, as I said, it's gone on to garner a cult following. I know some people that absolutely love this movie. And I'm glad you liked it. I was a bit worried because I was fearing the worst, that you were going to turn around and say, do you know what? I really didn't like that, Barry.
No,
and I'll be
I really
see you later, man.
I wouldn't say I'm as massive a fan as yourself, but no, for what, you got to put it for what it is, like a TV movie, production values and budget and all that. Yeah, it really works well. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I even watched it twice, to be honest. To make notes for the podcast.
All right.
But we got the actual ending. Have you noticed as well at the ending? He's hysterical at the end, and it really put me in mind of Sally from Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah. You'd lose it by that point, wouldn't you?
Yeah, he totally lost it.
He's probably never going to I'm not saying that he'll end up in a mental institution or anything, but it certainly, let's face it, with what he goes through in that film, there's no way you're ever going to forget or fully recover from that, are you?
No, I'm thinking Toby Hooper would have actually had to have watched this. With the actual back, you've got the background to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in the sunlight. You've got, that part there.
Well, this was before Texas Chainsaw. Oh, yeah, sorry, you're saying Toby. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
He must have seen this. I'd be amazed if he didn't get any influence from this film.
I'm not sure. I'm not actually sure on that one, to be honest. But, it's one of them. I think he'd be paranoid to actually overtake a truck or even a car ever again, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
After watching this, you wouldn't want to be in that situation.
You just play it safe, wouldn't you, for the rest of your life? And that's what I really like about the film, is the fact that the truck is the villain, all right? The truck is being, it's being driven by someone, certainly. But the truck almost takes on a life of its own. And I can't actually recall what the truck was called, in fact. I did actually look it up, because I was quite curious as to what the truck was called. But it's like you said, Spielberg said it almost looks like a face on the front. So it was like, I think they got the perfect looking truck for this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Movie. And I noticed as well, during the car scenes you see with Weaver driving in the car, they wanted to actually back project it in the studio. To which Spielberg turned around and said, no. He said, if you want to do that, then, if we don't go on location shoot, then I'm not doing the film. So they backed down and let Spielberg, film it on location.
All right. Yeah, because I also read, the monster sound effect at the end. It was actually from a film, which I'll confess, I've never seen, from The Land Unknown. And apparently Spielberg later reused it after the sharks killed in Jaws. It's the same sound effect that he actually just recycled for Jaws.
Right, yeah, I didn't know that.
And, like I said, again, kind of like, parallels to the two in that. I love both movies. Jaws is still my favourite. I mean, Jaws is kind of like, I'm not going to say the granddaddy of creature features, because, there was like The Birds, by Hitchcock in 1963, but Jaws, without a doubt, is one of the greatest creature features ever made. And I think that's a movie that is elevated well above most other films of the genre due to great direction.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny you said that, because Spielberg actually said about this film, about the Hitchcock reference, is it's like The Birds on Wheels.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah. But in terms of Jaws, they're poles apart, obviously, through, production values and money and everything.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you can see this similar storyline, definitely, throughout.
Yeah, obviously, Jaws as well was based on a novel by Peter Benchley. And, Jaws put a lot of people off going into the water, didn't it? Jaws was a film that actually caused a huge impact.
That's right, yeah. In the same way as The Exorcist brought more people to the church.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that The Exorcist, when that was released, it's easy to see why it caused such huge controversy upon release. Nobody had seen a film like it before. But there were even priests in America lining up outside cinemas actually blessing people as they left. That they believed watching that film was corrupting people's souls and... I don't know about you, but it takes more than a horror film to corrupt my soul. I don't even know if I've got one, but you know what I mean? It's...
yeah.
But no, I think Duel's a great film. As you said, it's just one of them films. It's so simple. There's virtually almost no plot there. But it doesn't need to. It's all in the execution.
It's gone on to inspire quite a lot of films as well that come after. Certainly some scenes in Jeepers Creepers are similar.
Certainly, yeah.
I got certainly the first 20 minutes of Jeepers Creepers. I got the whole Duel vibe.
Yeah, and I'm sure there'd be people that would compare it to 2001's Roadkill, otherwise known as Joyride, with Paul Walker.
That's one that's on my radar. I've never seen.
Oh,
I actually do own the DVD.
Okay.
And I think they've done a sequel to that as well.
They did. I'll say this. I think Roadkill It's not bad. I think it's quite good. It's quite ironic, really. Paul Walker, may rest in peace in that, but in the very same year, he was in Fast and the Furious, the very first film. Two films which actually had him on the road for the majority of the movie. Driving.
There is actually another one that's very similar as well, called Monster Man.
I've not seen that one.
I would say that's worth a watch, definitely.
Okay.
It's nothing groundbreaking or anything, but it's a similar vibe.
Yeah.
And I hear from what I've read, it's very much like Joyride as well.
All right. Yeah, because I think with Duel as well, I think it's sometimes hard to forget that it was just originally a TV film because it's gone on to have the status that it has now.
Yeah.
But again, I still think, even though it has a fan base, there's still a lot of people out there that probably, I'd say, within the mainstream audience, not kind of die hard, because Duel is it's one of them films, isn't it? It's kind of a hybrid. It's kind of horror / thriller. It's more thriller. Definitely. I'd say it's more of a thriller than an all-out horror movie. But among the mainstream audience, I don't think it's a film that's well enough known.
No, that's right. Yeah, and in a similar way to, I see something like The Hitcher as well. I can see parts of The Hitcher in this film as well, and that was quite similar. It was known as a thriller, really, not really a horror film. But that don't get recognition either. But that's for another day.
Yeah, but it's just there's a lot of great scenes in this film. As I say, the school bus scene, the train scene, the diner scene, very well done, very suspenseful. I love that whole scene. Just like, you're in that situation. It's like, who, the guy could be here, but who is he? The whole, everyone's a suspect kind of thing, But yeah, I think it's very definitely directed. And I think it's easy to see, how Spielberg, because even going back to Murder by the Book, which was, that Spielberg directed, that was a really good, well-directed Columbo episode as well.
Well, you've seen that one then, have you?
Oh, I'm a huge Columbo fan. Yeah.
Right, I like Columbo. I wouldn't go as far as to say I'll buy anything, but if it comes on telly now and again, which it does, I'd watch it, yeah. I've not seen that episode.
Big Columbo fan. Columbo's probably my all-time favourite detective series, in all honesty. Peter Falk was just brilliant in that role. The detective absolutely. That everyone underestimates him. He comes across as being scatty and forgetful and all that, but it's all a game. It's all a ruse. That's how he lures the people in. And Spielberg did a good job with that. And the segment that he directed from Night Gallery was actually good as well. It was the second segment of the pilot episode. I will say this quickly, that the very first segment in the pilot episode of Night Gallery is probably my all-time favourite segment from the entire show.
See, I've not seen any of those episodes, so
I recommend it. I'm sure people that are into anthologies. I'm sure they know Night Gallery. Probably not as well known, not as iconic as the Twilight Zone, certainly. But there are some really good episodes there, and Rod Serling didn't really have the creative input with that show like he had with the Twilight Zone. He's there. Right. He introduces the stories. He did write some, but there wasn't as much. It's just kind of like he's kind of the face of the show, if you know what I mean.
But what I found interesting as well, that he went on a year later to do another TV film called Something Evil, which was like The Exorcist, but before The Exorcist was released.
Yeah.
So that's definitely on my radar.
And I haven't seen it, I'll admit. I've seen most Spielberg films. I've seen the majority of Spielberg films. He is the biggest film director in Hollywood. There's only one guy in Hollywood that has earned more money than Spielberg, and that's George Lucas, and that's obviously because of Star Wars. Steven Spielberg is probably the most household name of film directors out there. He is a guy that has... I don't think anyone out there has made more high-grossing films than him. I mean, you look at the films he was churning out. Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the Indiana Jones franchise, Jurassic Park, E.T. I mean, the list just goes on. Yeah,
he's just a classic director, and he could direct anything nowadays, and it'd be top box.
Well, the next film that he's directing is West Side Story. That's actually his next project, West Side Story in that. But he's a guy, again, Spielberg, he's just, even the films that he hasn't directed, films that he's produced, the likes of Back to the Future, Gremlins. I'm pretty certain he was a producer on The Goonies in 1985 as well.
And Poltergeist.
And Poltergeist, of course. Yeah, he's just a guy that, I don't really want to go into this, but he even puts his name on the Transformers films. He doesn't really have any creative input. It's just having Steven Spielberg's name on something is a selling point in itself.
He's got to be knocking on name on, hasn't he? He's got to be well in his 70s.
He's got to be. Duel was 1971, and Spielberg's a guy that's... I do think he's one of the greatest directors of all time. I think he's a guy that has covered so many genres as well.
Yeah, just for Jaws alone, I think he's one of the best ever.
Yeah, so, Duel, great movie, in my opinion. As I said, I haven't actually seen a huge amount of TV movies out there, but I have to sometimes remind myself that this was just a TV film. But it did deservedly get a theatrical release with scenes that really kind of pushed the film to be even better. Yeah.
There's quite a lot of ABC films, mind, that you can get on YouTube, and I would say to you to try and check a few out, because there's one I think called Don't Go to Sleep. Have you heard of that one?
I've heard of it, I haven't seen it.
That's like a precursor to the slasher.
Yeah.
And that's got some great scenes. There's some really, good ones to check out.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much it for today. Thanks to everyone that listened. I'm glad you enjoyed it anyway, Darren.
I don't think I enjoyed it as much as you, but I do give the film high regard, really.
Yeah. At the end of the day, if we all like the same thing, the world would be a boring place.
Exactly.
So even if you were to turn around and say, look, you didn't like it, all right, I might have to Facebook unfriend you, and, I might have to get a little Darren voodoo doll out or something, but,
Yeah.
No.
But no, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I don't know what film we're going to do next. We'll put our brains together, have a little think. But thanks to everyone that listened. And we'll be back again soon to haunt you and torment you. And if you've liked what you've heard, please feel free to subscribe. And we'll be back again soon.
Yeah, and just want to say thanks for listening. And I'll see you all again soon.
Take care.
Take care.